10 and counting, and you should expect to be counting for some time yet to come. Now, according to sources, President Trump is privately telling lawmakers that he will not agree to a deal if it only allocates $1.3 billion for border security. Now, remember, Democrats take control of the House this week, and there's no sign that they're willing to budge either. It's 800,000 federal workers and their families who are feeling the pain, while lawmakers themselves play politics and continue to collect their paychecks.
Tony Reardon appeared on CNN this weekend. The head of National Treasury Employees Union says his members, they're anxious and angry.
They have been kind of cast in the middle of a fight, not of their creation, and that they do not have the power to resolve. They are fearful of not being able to pay their mortgage, to pay their rent, to pay the college tuition bill for their children, and they want Congress to do their job, Congress and the administration to do their job. We had an individual let us know that recently his wife died. He is unable at this time, because of this shutdown, to pay for her headstone.
Some banks like Chase and Wells Fargo say they're willing to work with federal employees whose accounts are in good standing. And as questions linger about how far President Trump may be willing to bend on border security, his outgoing chief of staff is publicly clarifying one critical point. More now from Sarah Westwood at the White House.
Well, Allison and Alex, President Trump is holding out for funding for his promised border wall as the partial government shutdown drags into its second week. Now, the president's allies have tried to muddy the waters about how much funding the president wants for a wall versus border security. It's also not clear at this point what the president considers an actual wall. Outgoing White House Chief of Staff John Kelly said that this administration actually abandoned the idea of a concrete wall along the southern border early in Trump's presidency. He told the Los Angeles Times, to be honest, it's not a wall. The president still says wall. Oftentimes, frankly, he'll say barrier or fencing. Now he's tended towards steel slats. But we left a solid concrete wall early on in the administration. Senator Lindsey Graham came to the White House on Sunday for a 2-hour lunch and said he pitched the president on what he described as a potential breakthrough should it gain traction. And that's a deal that would trade $5 billion in wall funding for temporary protections for the so-called Dreamers, the young undocumented immigrants protected by DACA.
The president didn't commit, but I think he's very open-minded. I know there's some Democrats out there who would be willing to provide money for wall border security if we could deal with the DACA population and TPS people. And hopefully we can get some serious discussions started maybe as soon as next week.
But keep in mind that Mick Mulvaney, the incoming acting chief of staff / budget director, has already signaled that the president is willing to back down off that $5 billion number. In fact, Vice President Mike Pence last week offered something in the neighborhood of $2.5 billion, half of that, and Democrats rejected it. Now, keep in mind that Democratic congressional leaders haven't been invited back to the White House for further negotiations, so talks do still appear to be at a standstill. Allison and Alex.
All right. Thanks to Sarah Westwood at the White House. Now, adding insult to injury, President Trump has issued an executive order that freezes federal workers' pay in 2019. This move follows through on a proposal that he announced earlier this year. It nixes a 2.1% across-the-board pay raise that was set to take effect in January. It also cancels a yearly adjustment of federal employees' pay based on their region. Now, the president said back in August that the federal budget could not support that pay increase.
President Trump is blaming Democrats for the deaths of 2 migrant children at the Mexico border, and he's facing intense criticism for it. The president claims Democrats and their, quote, pathetic immigration policies allowed people to think they could enter the U.S. illegally. He insists they wouldn't even try to come if there was a wall. I want you to listen to Kellyanne Conway here making that case on CNN's State of the Union over the weekend.
I don't like some of the Democrats using these deaths as political pawns.
But isn't that exactly what the president just did?
No, the president is not doing that. The president does not want these children to come on the perilous journey to begin with. They are paying, now some of them are paying the ultimate price, but many of them, all of them are paying these coyotes who don't give a whit about human life.
But this is not a new policy.
And the Congress has failed to close loopholes that make people believe they should come here as a family unit.
All of this political posturing is doing nothing to solve what is really a heartbreaking crisis at the border. And we have new video of shelter staff members pushing and shoving migrant children. Now it's under review for possible criminal charges. 2 employees have been fired, with others disciplined. Our Nick Valencia has more.
Allison and Alex, this is a story that was first reported by the Arizona Republic. They obtained this surveillance video by filing an open records request with the Arizona Department of Health Services. And before you see it, we want to warn some of our viewers may find this video disturbing. What it shows are 3 incidents involving staffers at the Hacienda del Sol shelter in Youngtown, Arizona. It's a facility that was run by Southwest Key. This is an incident that happened, or incidents that happened in mid-September, and they were reported by Southwest Key to local law enforcement as well as federal officials. The Maricopa County Sheriff's Office did investigate and at the time decided to not bring criminal charges, but that has changed. Here's a statement that we got over the weekend, which says, quote, "Based upon the evidence gathered during this thorough investigation, MCSO Executive Command has made the decision to submit the case to the Maricopa County Attorney's Office for its review and determination of criminal charges. The case will be submitted on Monday, and further questions about this matter should be directed to the county attorney." We should mention that the Hacienda del Sol shelter closed in October. Southwest Key spokesman released a statement back then saying he welcomed the decision by the Office of Refugee Resettlement, but they did not go into the details. And after seeing this video, we could perhaps tell why. We should mention that this is another dark stain and ugly thread in what is already a very sad story involving migrants in America. Alex, Allison.
All right, thanks to Nick Valencia there. Switching gears, the Affordable Care Act, or Obamacare, will remain in effect while a ruling that found it unconstitutional is being appealed. It was Texas federal district judge Reed O'Connor who ruled that Obamacare is unconstitutional because Congress eliminated the individual mandate penalty. Since the individual mandate was upheld as a tax, the judge essentially ruled no tax, no law. The decision has jeopardized health coverage for millions of Americans on the Obamacare exchanges and Medicaid expansion. It also threatens to eliminate popular protections like guaranteed coverage for those with pre-existing conditions.
Okay, we've got a full day of trading ahead on Wall Street. The view among investors, 2018 was a year of peak earnings and growth. And 2019, it's going to be more tempered. Get ready. In 7 of the past 9 years, the S&P 500 has boasted double-digit returns. Last year, the S&P 500 returned 22%. Well, now investors are facing their worst stock market returns in a decade. The stock market is what's called a leading indicator. Even though the economy today is strong, banks are healthy, job growth is good, the market is reflecting what is expected for next year. And the stock market is telling us next year it will be very good, but it's not going to be great. Okay, so let's talk about the new year for a second. Some resolutions we often talk about pledging to do. We want to eat healthier. We want to exercise more. Yeah, those are our New Year's resolutions that we don't always keep. But what about our financial health? According to Fidelity Investments, for the 10th year in a row, topping the list of the 3 most popular financial resolutions for 2019 is saving more money, a median of $200 per month, followed by paying down debt and spending less money. Other resolutions from Charles Schwab include creating a budget, managing your debt, optimizing your portfolio, preparing for the unexpected, and protecting your estate. And also, if you're in this for the long haul, I would say sit this out for a little while. The volatility is only expected to continue. The NASDAQ, the S&P 500, the Dow, all in the negative for the year. So they've all reversed all those gains.
And all over the place the last few weeks.
They have.
Which you've been all over. Incredible. All right, well, coming up next, an intern was mauled by a lion at a North Carolina. We will be ringing in 2019 in just under 20 hours here on the East Coast. And as always, it will be a huge celebration here in New York on Times Square. For those expected millions of people who will be there to see the big ball drop in person, security will be extremely tight. So for more on that, we go to CNN's Miguel Marquez.
Alice and Alex, it is a party for 2 million people, and safety is a #1 priority for the NYPD. The entire area around Times Square will be blocked off. There will be entrances for the public to get in. There will be magnetometers at all of those entrances. No alcohol will be allowed, no backpacks, coolers, large packages, lawn chairs, or umbrellas. Doesn't sound like much of a party, does it? The pens that they put the public in will start opening up at 11 a.m. It's a little like Hotel California. You can check in anytime you want. But if you leave, you can't check back in because you have to go back through the line again, basically. So you're going to have your restroom strategy worked out if you actually go. As for NYPD's part, there's going to be hundreds of officers and agents from over 50 agencies, local, state, and federal, 1,200 plus cameras, officers embedded in hotels around the area. Bomb squad will be on hand, bomb sniffing dogs, hundreds of vehicle blockers to block off the entire area. And one new thing this year, drones.
We'll be deploying NYPD drones for Overwatch. We haven't done that before. But that's going to give us a visual aid and a flexibility of being able to move a camera to a certain spot with great rapidity through a tremendous crowd.
They'll even have counter drone technology out there. So if you want to bring your drone to Times Square, you might be into trouble because they'll probably be able to take it down somehow, although they're being very, very tight-lipped on the details there. Allison?
Okay, Miguel, looks like a lot of fun. Not. I'm joking. I'm going to be out there working. Okay, so for those of you who are heading to Times Square like me, I will be working and elsewhere to welcome in 2019. Everybody wants to know, how is the weather going to be? Let's get to meteorologist Pedram Javahiri with the New Year's forecast.
Allison and Alex, good morning to you both. Happy New Year's as well. Take a look at what's happening here across the East Coast because some serious weather beginning to shape up across portions of the East Coast as it relates to at least heavy rainfall, some strong thunderstorms, and even a wintry mix, and even some snow to be had as well. We'll take you out towards the Northeast into New York City because yeah, that's what it looks like. 49 degrees right around midnight. Rain showers probable across the region. In fact, begins around 4 p.m., continues throughout the overnight hours of Monday into Tuesday morning. And if it all plays out as it's forecast, it would be the first time since 1994 we've had wet weather right at midnight for New Year's Eve there at Times Square. In fact, it'll also be one of the warmest ones as well. Compare that to a wind chill last year on New Year's Eve as we rung in 2018. It was 6 below what it felt like at times into the morning hours in New York. 45 degrees what it will feel like this morning going into tomorrow morning, I should say, around portions of New York City. So that's the perspective. Wet weather also slated across areas of the south here with some stronger thunderstorms embedded across portions of the Tennessee Valley, but at least generally going to be a threat here for rain as opposed to snow for a large part of the East Coast. Guys?
All right, thanks to Pedram there. All right, well, a new year also means new laws on the books all across the country, and here are some of the highlights. At least 19 states will increase their minimum wages on or around New Year's Day, according to the National Employment Law Project. The federal minimum wage has been stuck at around $7.25 since 2009. Now, more working women in California are also getting a seat at the table in 2019. Publicly held corporations now must have at least one woman on the board of directors by the end of the year.
In Illinois, new moms will be excused from jury service if they're nursing their babies. You're going to have to be older to smoke cigarettes legally in Massachusetts. The age to buy is being raised to 21. And the state of New York announced the Drug Take Back Act to combat the opioid epidemic. It makes drug makers responsible for the costs of leftover drug collection, transportation, and destruction. The program is aimed at preventing drugs from ending up in the wrong hands. It's also meant to prevent patients from flushing leftover drugs down the toilet, which can harm the water supply and marine life.
It'll take a lot of drugs to harm the water supply.